So in this video we're going to look at using both the circumference and area formulae for a circle that you've previously been introduced to. So the learning intention today is to confidently be able to use the formula for the circumference of a circle and also the formula for the area of a circle. You need to be fully aware of the different parts of a circle, i.e. the radius and the diameter, and you need to be sure that you are picking the correct value to substitute into the formula. And you can be expected to do that with a calculator or without a calculator. You'll be directed as to when you should be doing the ones without a calculator. Looking for you to know to use the correct units and also to be able to round appropriately in your answer. So, quick recap, what should we know about the circle, or what have we learned about the circle? The terms that you should be familiar with, the radius. What is the radius? Well, the radius is simply the distance from the centre point of a circle to the edge, whereas your diameter is the distance that goes all the way across the circle from one side to the other. You should know how these two things compare. You should know that the diameter is 2 times the radius, or another way of saying that is to say that your radius is half of the diameter, and you can work them out. If you know one, you can easily work out the other. So those are the connections that you should be aware of. For the circle formulae that you've been introduced to, both the circle formulae involve the value of pi. And the value of pi is just a number that's a bit bigger than 3. It doesn't have an exact value. It goes on and on forever. And that's why it's got its own special symbol. It's the Greek letter pi. So it appears in both the circle formula. So if you're trying to work out the circumference, remember, which is simply the perimeter of the circle, the outside edge, or the curved part, if you can remember the C bit, and that's worked out by doing the pi value times by the diameter value of any circle. Whereas the area formula is the pi value times the radius squared. Now, radius squared means that you're actually multiplying the radius by itself. So, on a scientific calculator, to access that pi number, you have to press the shift button. If it's a Casio calculator like this, the pi button is actually, there's not a button for it, but the pi symbol appears just at the top left of this times by 10 to the power x symbol. And you then, if you press the shift key, then press that times by 10 to the x key, then the equals, you'll see the pi symbol will appear in the display. To get the decimal value, you then need to press this SD button here, which is just above the delete button. So make sure you are familiar with that and that you know how to use the pi key, because that's going to be useful for doing your calculations. Calculations with a calculator, as we've just said, if we're using a calculator, we'll be using the pi key. Your answer invariably will need to be rounded because you get loads of decimals when you do this. If they don't tell you what to round to, then 2 decimal places is usually the normal practice. But you can be expected to round to 1 decimal place sometimes, or significant figures can also be used. If you're specifically directed to a question where you're not allowed to use a calculator, then the value of pi you will be told to take the value of pi to 3.14, and you need to do all your calculations without the calculator when that happens. So, first example we're going to look at, it's saying it's a non-calculator question, so you're being directed to take the value of pi to be 3.14. So that means in the formula you're actually going to be writing in 3.14 in place of the pi. So this first question, find the circumference of the circle, and then part B, you're also going to use the same circle but being asked to work out the area. So if you look at the circle, first of all, you need to know what information have you already been given about this circle. And clearly, it's the distance from one side of the circle to the other you've been given. So it's the diameter that you know. So you know the diameter for this circle is 40 centimetres. So in the first instance, we're trying to work out the circumference of the circle. So what formula is it that we're required to use? So make sure you know it's the one for the C equals. So your first line of working should contain the formula written down. Your next line of working, you're going to substitute in the value that you know. So you know the value of pi. You're being told to take pi as 3.14. So we are doing 3.14 times pi. Our diameter, as I've just said, is 40. Now this is what you need to be able to do without the calculator. Now to multiply a number by 40, you should break that up into doing 3.14 times by 4. So you're going to get 4 4s 16, 4 1s 4 and 1s 5, 4 3s are 12. Two numbers after the point here. So we need two numbers after the point in our answer. But of course it was times by 40 we were doing. So you split it up. We've done the times by 4 bit. We still also need to do times by 10. So we would take that 12.56 times it by 10. Multiplying by 10 means all the digits are going to move one place to the left. So you'd get your answer 125.6. So notice that I've put in a line. I've done that kind of work into the side. I'm now going to come back to where my formula is laid out and I'm going to put my answer in. And of course this was in centimetres, so my answer should still also be in centimetres because it's a distance around the edge of the circle. So your answer would be 125.6 centimetres. You don't have loads of decimals and you're not trying to do any rounding. That would be it. Second part of that question was to calculate the area. So you begin by writing down the area formula, and the area formula is pi r squared. So clearly we need the radius measurement, and as I've previously said, right, that the distance, the diameter rather, is 40 centimetres, the measurement that you've been given in this. So, but we need the radius here in this formula. So we need to be able to first of all know that we need to half that diameter number, so we're going to get the radius is 20, and it's the radius that we use. So you're working for this, when you substitute into the formula, you'd be writing down area equals, you'd put your 3.14 times by, you're doing 20 squared. Now what does that mean? That means that we're going to have to do 20 times 20. And I'm writing out like that, just in line with the formula, but then I'm going to actually do the working at the side. So I would do the 20 times 20 bit first. How do I do that? Well, you can split that up into 2 times 10, each of those numbers, 2 times 10. Group together your 2's so that you'd have 2 times 2. Group together the 10, so you've got 10 times 10. So you can clearly see 2 times 2 is 4, 10 times 10 is 100. So your answer to 20 times 20, right, is 400, or however you do that in your head or whatever. But remember, this is a non-calculator question, so we need to see that. So now what we need to see is what is 3.14 times by 400. So how am I going to do that? So again, I would be splitting this up and I'd be saying, right, I'm going to do 3.14 times by 4. So I'm going to have 4 times 4 is 16, 4 1's 4 and 1's 5, 4 3's are 12. Two numbers after the point, so I've got 12.56. But what I'm doing is I'm splitting up that 400 into two processes. I've done the times by 4. Now I need to do the times by 100. That's moving all the digits 2 places to the left, and I'd get the answer of 1256. So I'm going to put that here, and then at this point you need to make sure that you get the correct units in here. So your area is what you're working out, and area is always square units. Because we started with centimetres, that means our area this time is going to be 1,256 square centimetres. So very, very important that you get the correct units for area. You will lose marks when you don't do that. So that's what your working should look like in a non-calculator question. We should have a formula. You substitute into the formula. Any working like this would be appearing at the side if you're not using a calculator, and then you get your answer. And the other thing is that we replace the pi value with just the short truncated version, the 3.14, but that's only when we're told to do that. In this next question, we are using the calculator, so when you're using the calculator, you will be using the pi key. So different circle this time. Find the circumference of the circle, and you're also being directed to round your answer to 2 decimal places. So again, in this one, the formula for the circumference, so we'd be looking for the formula to be written down first, so that's the c equals pi d. I'm going to look at the circle and see what information I've got here, and notice that this time I've actually been given the shorter distance from the centre to the edge, that is the radius. So therefore I'm going to need my circumference formula uses the diameter, so I need to be able to double this to get the diameter number. So 2 times 16.5 is 33 centimetres. So when I come to substitute into the formula, I'm writing down c equals, I'm leaving the pi symbol this time, don't write 3.14, we are times in by 33. Now what will come up on your display in your calculator will be that 33.5 pi, and sometimes it asks you to leave your answer in terms of pi, but a lot of the time if it's talking about rounding, then you're going to press the SD button to get to the decimal value. So when you press the SD button here, you'd get 103.6725, whole load of other digits, and we would round that, remember, to 2 decimal places. So 2 decimal places, 1, 2, you're looking at that third digit, it's a 2, so it's just going to get chopped off. So your answer would be 103.67, and it's just a length, remember, not centimetres, sorry. This time our length is in metres, so we should have 103.67 metres. So again, make sure you watch the units, get the units correct. So same circle again, but this time we're going to be working out the area. So of course our formula, again, making sure you pick the correct formula. So formula for the area is the one with the r squared in it, so pi r squared. That should be written down. Then we're going to substitute, so as we've already established that is actually the radius measurement we've got there, so we leave the pi symbol, times in by 16.5 squared, and if you do that on the calculator, it will come up with 855.29, oops, right, 855.2985 and a whole load of other digits. And this time we are rounding to 2 significant figures. Now that's to do with the accuracy, so that's the first significant figure, that's the second significant figure, so it's going to be the third one that we're going to be using to help us round. And what that does is that influences what the second significant figure is. So here the second significant figure would end up in becoming 6. But that does not mean that this number, this is 855.29 and a whole load of other digits. We're just making it slightly less accurate when we round. So the fact that we've got 8, 6 for the first 2 significant figures, we need to put in a 0 for the units column, because 855 point something is approximately the same thing as 860, not 86, so 860. Also remember your units here, they need to be square metres. If you start with metres, your area units will be square metres, and that would be it where your answer was rounded to 2 significant figures. Final example we're going to look at, I've already mentioned this, that sometimes you're asked to leave your answer in terms of pi. Now clearly the information you've been given in this question is the radius, so the radius is equal to 8.5 centimetres. We've been asked to work out the circumference. The formula that we use for the circumference is the c equals pi d, so it's the diameter number that I need. So I'm going to have to start first of all by multiplying that by 2 to get my diameter, which would be equal to 17, right? 2 times 8.5. So when I substitute that into here, I'm just leaving the pi symbol again, putting in 17, and then basically if you do that in the calculator it just comes up like that, and that's because it's saying leave your answer in terms of pi. That's it. So it'd be 17 pi rather centimetres, and that would be it. You don't do anything else with it. You don't need to write any decimals, you don't press the SD button. That's just it. So showing you each of the different styles of questions that you can be faced with. So now it's time to go and practice and put all that together.